So about 2 weeks ago, the Call of Duty World War II multiplayer beta had finally ended, and there will be one more beta weekend for PC players, but I won't be participating in that because I know my computer is not good enough to run it. But I decided to make this video sort of talking about what I think of the game from what I have played during the 2 beta weekends on the PS4. Bear in mind, as I make this video, things which I used in the beta may change before release, and I didn't get access to the full game obviously. I was missing out on some weapons, some maps, and the campaign and the zombies modes as well. So let's talk about the things I did get access to in the beta, so that if you guys didn't play the beta, then maybe you can watch this video and get some insight about what the game is like and if it's good and whether you should actually buy it. Starting off with the weapons, I thought the balance of weapons in this game was pretty good. The weapons definitely did feel good to use when in game, such as like the STG, and I think the reason for this is because they have like a history behind them, and in the previous Call of Duties all the weapons didn't really exist, like in Black Ops 3, because that game was based in like 2065, so it's really cool to have a history behind the weapons you are using in Call of Duty World War II, which I think made them a lot more fun to use. And for the balance in terms of the weapon stats, I think it was pretty good overall. The assault rifles and SMGs are pretty much all viable to use in the game, but however I do think the STG is slightly above all the other guns in the game, and I hope they do nerf the STG just a little bit so it's on par with the other guns in the game, such as the Tommy gun, the PPSH, the WAF, the grease gun, etc. All of those guns are pretty good, but I think the STG is just like a slight tier above all those other weapons, so I do hope it gets changed a little bit before the full release. From what I tested with the shotguns, I didn't feel they were that great in the beta, and I do think they should get a slight buff to make them on par with SMGs and make them a little bit more viable in the game. The main shotgun I did use was the first one, I believe called the Winchester, and even that thing could be like a 3-bullet kill at a pretty close range, so I thought it was a little bit underpowered. Maybe it was okay if you did use the incendiary shells, but that sort of forces you to use that division, which I don't think is that great of an idea, so I do hope they do buff the shotguns just a little bit, aside from the one shotgun which has the rifle bullet attachment, which I thought was pretty OP because it does give the shotgun an infinite range, so I think shotguns do need a little bit of fine tuning. I didn't really use the sniper rifles that much in the beta because I'm not really a sniper person myself, but I do think they are pretty good if you use them on the right maps, such as Aachen, which is more of a long range map, but I don't think you'll have much success if you do use them on the smaller maps. And finally, for LMGs, I thought LMGs were kind of weird because they were quite powerful to use, but the main benefits when you use an LMG is sort of like the tons of bullets you have in a magazine, so you can just spray people down constantly. And that comes at the cost of moving slowly with your weapon and having a really long reload time. But in Call of Duty World War II, the LMG magazine size is actually quite small. I don't think there was an LMG in the beta which had a magazine of over 60 bullets, which is quite small, and the reload time for the LMGs was still really long, so they didn't really seem that great to use, to be honest, just because the magazine size was only like twice as big, maybe less than that. But the reload time was like 3 times as long as an assault rifle, so I think they need to be buffed a little bit by making the magazines a little bit bigger. So now let's talk about the maps which were available in the beta, and in my opinion the maps were actually pretty good overall, I would say. Although I know a lot of the community didn't like the maps, in my opinion they were designed quite well overall. In terms of aesthetics, I think they looked really good, which I thought may have been an issue with a Call of Duty World War II game. I thought maybe the maps wouldn't look very good and they'd all look the same kind of, but I think they did a really good job in terms of the design. But as for the gameplay itself, I think they played quite well. Sledgehammer Games have definitely taken the 3-lane approach to maps, although in some of the maps the lanes weren't really as defined as you might expect and they sort of like merged into each other. For example, on the map Aachen, the buildings and the street are kind of like merged into one, so the lanes aren't exactly that defined. I think Aachen was one of the least popular maps in the game, and I thought it wasn't even that bad, to be honest. I'm not sure why exactly people were complaining about it. I think it did play quite slowly compared to like some of the other maps in the game. I think there was one game where we did run out of time before we got 100 kills in a team deathmatch, so maybe that is why some people were complaining about it, but I thought it was an okay map overall. The smallest map in the game was probably Point de Hoc, which was a classic World War II style map which featured things like trench warfare. It was a pretty small map and it was quite fast paced, and shotguns were definitely powerful on this map along with submachine guns, but even assault rifles and LMGs were fairly viable on this map as well, which is the case on all the other maps in the game such as Ardennes as well as Gibraltar. Ardennes was a map based in a snowy forest, and this was probably my favourite map in the game. It just felt really well balanced, the lanes were defined, and you could use pretty much any gun on this map and have fairly good success on it. Like, you could use shotguns if you stayed around the mid lane or the ruins, you could use the sniper if you stayed on the side with the houses, and assault rifles and LMGs worked pretty much everywhere on this map. It was a really good map overall, super balanced, which is great to see in the game. But Gibraltar wasn't a great map in my opinion. It didn't really feel that balanced, and sometimes you could feel like you get stuck in one area of the map and you could sort of be like spawn trapped, and it was really hard to push forward and try and change the spawns on that map, so I wasn't really a huge fan of Gibraltar. So overall for maps, I thought they were pretty decent, maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Just a few issues such as on Aachen it felt a little bit slow at times, and Gibraltar the spawns were a little bit dodgy in my opinion. But now let's move on to customization, which is definitely less in Call of Duty World War II than the previous games. So if you guys don't know how customization works in this game, basically you choose a division, and there's 5 different divisions in the game. Each one is sort of based around a weapon class. So for example, the infantry division is based around assault rifles, and it gives you benefits such as a bayonet for your weapon and things which are pretty good for assault rifles in the game, such as the stock attachment if you do choose to level up your division. So in that sense, divisions are pretty much like bundles of perks for your class, and you can't mix and match them in between divisions, so you have to kind of make sacrifices when choosing your division, because each division has its own benefits. Some of them may have like the flak jacket perk, some may have the stock for your weapons, which can be super useful, but you can't actually combine them, so the customization is a little bit limited in that sense. But I don't really think that's necessarily a bad thing, because you can't have this one OP class which is the definite best class in the game, because each division does have its own unique features. Along with your division, you can also choose one basic training, which is pretty much like a small perk, a bonus or a wild card. For example, one of the basic training allows you to use a launcher as a secondary. One basic training allows you to like scavenge ammo, so that does add to the customization a little bit. So that sums up a lot of the core features of the game, and now I'll just share my thoughts on some other like small features of the game. For example, I think the kill streaks in the game aren't that powerful, which I actually quite like, because that does mean it focuses more on the gunplay rather than getting score streaks and just destroying everybody. But if you do like to go for those high-end score streaks, you probably won't get a ton of kills with them, which you may not like. I also think the mounted LMG on the map Gibraltar is a little bit overpowered, as you can really easily shoot through the walls on it. So I think the mounted LMG needs a little bit of a nerf. And speaking of walls, I think in general it's really easy to get wall bangs in this game. Kind of too easy in a sense, and I think maybe they should make the walls a little bit thicker so it's not as easy just to shoot someone through a wall. So Call of Duty World War II does feel like a classic Call of Duty game, so if you liked Black Ops 1 or World at War, then you'll probably like this game as well. But if you are expecting historical accuracy from a Call of Duty game, I would definitely not recommend buying this game, as you can play as a black female for the Axis team, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. But honestly, when I'm playing Call of Duty, I just want to kill noobs, and I don't really care about the characters which you can play. But there we have it, that is my review of the Call of Duty World War II multiplayer beta. If you guys have played the beta yourselves, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it, and if you found this review useful, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be absolutely amazing. But I'll see you guys in my next video.